Hi guys, this is gsmdown.com and I'm here with the Huawei Nexus 6P for a full review. This is the latest Nexus phone launched, is the current Google Nexus flagship and one of the first phones to come with Android 6.0 Marshmallow pre-installed. It was launched in September 2015 with the Nexus 5X made by LG, and this is the first Huawei made Nexus phone. The price tag is around $500 on Amazon.com, and this is a 5.7-inch metal phablet, the successor to the Moto Nexus 6, which was a 6-incher. So the design, well, we're dealing here with the best looking Nexus phone up until now. It comes in matte gold, graphite, aluminum and frost. Those are the color flavors, and the thickness here is 7.3 millimeters and it weighs 178 grams. Meanwhile, the predecessor, the Nexus 6, that one weighed 184 grams, so it was heavier, and measured 10.1 millimeters in thickness, so it was also thicker. It's important to mention that this phone has the same thickness as the iPhone 6s Plus, 7.3 millimeters, but it's a bit lighter, quite a bit, because the 6s Plus weighs 192 grams. In the meantime, it's also slimmer than the Galaxy Note 5, so that's got to count for something. It has a premium build. It uses anodized aluminum, an unibody chassis, and at the front there's a 3D curved glass panel. It offers great grip, and it's quite a long device, so you shouldn't expect to be able to reach all the areas of the screen with a single finger or hand. That's out of the question, is more of a phablet in the end. So the sides are rather flat compared to the current rounded side trend, and the camera hump gives this model a bit of personality. The build is pretty solid, and now let's analyze all of the elements we got here. So at the front we got these dual speakers, a pair here and a pair here. We obviously have sensors, front camera, and of course this upper piece is also the earpiece. And I have to say that the bezels are not quite narrow compared to the current standards. People are wishing to see edge-to-edge phones. Now if you move at the back, we got the main camera right here with a separate piece from the rest of the back, slightly thicker than the back, only slightly. I have to say that we got the front camera, dual LED flash, there is also the laser focus mechanism here somewhere, then we got a fingerprint scanner and a microphone right here. There's also a glass cover above the camera piece. Okay, so that's about it. Now we go to the top and we find the audio jack. Keep something in mind, you cannot see the antenna cutouts at the back because they're integrated into the corner area, so one here, one here, one here and one here, those are all antennas. So the top, audio jack and discrete antenna cutouts, the bottom USB Type-C port and some more cutouts, while the left side holds the SIM slot, which can be removed using a special metal key. The right side includes the volume button and power button that has a dotted pattern, so it can be easier to feel and press. Okay, so overall this model is very elegant, has premium materials, it's solid, and is the best looking Nexus phone yet. There's great attention to details, and if you look at the back, it's also gently curved and looks very nice. Now as far as the hardware is concerned, we're getting here a 5.7-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 2560 over 1440 pixels, a 16:9 aspect, and inside we find the octa-core 64-bit Qualcomm Snapdragon 810 processor in the version 2.1, clocked at 2 GHz. This one is actually the same processor from the OnePlus 2 handset, also the version 2.1. Other specs include the Adreno 430 GPU, 3 GB of LPDDR4 RAM, 3264 or 128 GB of storage, and no, there is no microSD card slot here. 8 megapixel camera at the front, 12.2 megapixel camera at the back, just like the other new Nexus phone made by LG. And then on the connectivity front, Wi-Fi 802.11, ABGN AC, dual band, Bluetooth 4.2, we got USB Type-C available at the bottom, GPS, LTE, DLNA and NFC. There are also dual speakers and 3 microphones in the mix. Well, the sensors include fingerprint, accelerometer, gyroscope, proximity, compass, ambient light, and that's pretty much it. Things to object in the hardware area, well, maybe the lack of 4 GB of RAM, and also maybe the lack of a microSD card slot, and perhaps the Snapdragon 810 was not exactly the best CPU that Huawei could use on this phone. Now the battery is a 3450 mAh unit, lithium polymer, and let's see how it performed in our test. But before that, I have to mention that on paper, this battery promises 440 hours of standby, 23 hours of talk time, and up to 100 hours of music playback. In our test that involves HD video playback in a loop with Wi-Fi on and brightness at 200 lux, we achieved 8 hours and 48 minutes, which is good, but it's below some of last year's flagships. Well, at least it beats the Galaxy Note 4 with its 8 hours and 30 minutes, HTC One A9 with its 8 hours and 29 minutes, and the Nexus 6, the predecessor, which scored 8 hours and 30 minutes. Still, we were below the iPhone 6s Plus, almost twice as little playback time, so the iPhone 6s Plus scored 15 hours and 8 minutes, Galaxy Note 5 11 hours and 39 minutes, and the Huawei Mate 8 9 hours and 51 minutes. We also did a PC Mark test, which simulates continuous usage and achieved 6 hours and 39 minutes. It's good, but could be a bit better. At least we surpassed the OnePlus 2, 6 hours and 25 minutes, Lenovo Fab Plus, 6 hours and 31 minutes, and HTC One A9, 6 hours and 17 minutes. We scored below the Huawei Honor 4X, 7 hours and 30 minutes, Asus Zenfone 2 Laser, 8 hours and 16 minutes, and the Huawei Mate 8, 9 hours and 3 minutes. The charging of the current model takes 2 hours and 12 minutes, but you shouldn't really use our test because we had the unofficial version and an unofficial charger. So this is a test version that didn't come with the usual charger. Assuming we take into account this duration of charging, well, we surpassed the OnePlus 2 that charges in 2 hours and 30 minutes, HTC One M9 2 hours and 20 minutes, and iPhone 6s Plus 2 hours and 57 minutes. Still, the Nexus 6 charged in just 1 hour and 50 minutes, the Galaxy Note 4 1 hour and 40 minutes, and the Galaxy Note 5 1 hour and 27 minutes. Of course, there are some settings here that are related to the battery, and let's look them up. Here we go. Battery is right here, and we have, aside from battery history, there is battery saver, which basically can be turned on or off, or can be turned on automatically at a certain battery level. What this does is helps improve battery life by reducing performance, limiting vibration, location services, and most background data. So that's its task. And then we have the other feature, battery optimization, which is connected to the dose mode, which was implemented with Android 6.0 Marshmallow. So these are the apps that you can select or deselect and allow them to be optimized or not optimized depending on your preference. And those, well, in dose mode, if you leave your device like this for a long period or even a shorter period, it can enter a special sleep mode, a special standby mode, where you can restrict app access to the network and CPU if you don't do anything for a long time. It detects this and starts saving power by not allowing apps to access those resources, and those apps are selected by you from the battery optimization area. So overall, I would call the battery reasonable for a phablet, okay for a Nexus, but still not at the same level as the flagships from last year. Now, as far as the acoustics go, we have dual front speakers, so speaker here and speaker here. We didn't get headphones bundled with this Huawei phone, and we're obviously using the Play Music app to get our musical kicks. And if you go to the settings, you'll be able to find Equalizer, which is pretty much stock, activated like this, 5 custom channel sliders, some options related to genres, surround sound and bass boost as usual available to tweak. So those are all the options, and now it's time to actually listen to some tunes and see if we're happy or not with the front speakers. Okay, now some conclusions. The sound is quite loud, clear and crisp. We have a great bass and very nice guitar plus very good high notes. It feels like, let's say, 10% less impressive than an HTC handset with boom sound, for example. And guess what? There is no muffling if you place the phone with the display on a flat surface. So here we go. not a huge muffling, which is quite reasonable. And in order to prove that, we also have a special test, and our test involves using a decibel meter. And here we go. We achieved 81 decibels at the front, and then at the back 79.2 decibels, which may seem unimpressive, but in real life the phone is louder than this test shows. So these tests means that we surpassed the Huawei Mate S. That one was able to score 80.7 decibels, HTC One A9 scored 80.6 decibels, and the Galaxy A5 77.6. We also beat the predecessor, Nexus 6, it scored 79.2 decibels. Still, we're below the OnePlus 2 with its 82 decibels, iPhone 6 85.2 decibels, and Asus Zenfone 2 87.6 decibels. There is no FM radio, and that's all we can say about the multimedia. We're reasonably happy with it, could be a bit louder, could have headphones and more equalizer settings, but in the end, we're reasonably happy. Now, as far as the screen goes, it's an AMOLED with a 5.7 inch diagonal, a 2560 over 1440 pixel resolution, 16:9 aspect, Gorilla Glass for protection, 518 ppi density, and it's a bit protected against fingerprints and smudges thanks to a special oleophobic coating, so you won't get smudges and prints on it very easily. It adopts a 3D curved glass panel, and compared to the predecessor, it's a bit smaller. The Nexus 6 had a 5.96 inch screen, and it was an AMOLED Quad HD, this time an AMOLED Quad HD at 5.7 inch. And now I'm about to test the screen, but since there's no video player, I'm going to have to resort to photos yet again and play our usual test video, which is this one here. So let's enjoy it. I find the 16:9 aspect ratio excellent for video watching. The colors are pretty vivid, maybe a bit too vivid for some people. The brightness is good, the contrast is also good, and the sunlight behavior is okay. So if you run into a patch of bright sun, you'll have no problem with the contrast whatsoever. View angles are pretty wide, not as wide as an IPS maybe, but reasonably wide. And the blacks are very deep, typical for an AMOLED. Pixels are of the diamond pentile matrix kind. You don't have to believe my word, because we have this little test here, and these are the pixels under the microscope with the typical diamond pentile matrix specific to an AMOLED. And then we tested the brightness and achieved with a lux meter 505 lux units, which places us above the Nexus 6 with its 374 lux units. That was a bit of a letdown, but we beat it. And we also beat the Galaxy S5 with its 480 lux and the OnePlus 2 with its 465 lux. We scored below the iPhone 6, 570 lux, iPhone 6s, 618 lux, and Galaxy Note 5, 747 lux. Obviously, the screen gets its very own settings, which are available here. Display, we have brightness level, adaptive brightness that optimizes brightness level to available light, wallpaper, sleep, press power button twice for camera, daydream, ambient display, which means wake screen up when you pick up device or receive notifications. We got font size when device is rotated, and finally cast. There's also an extra option. If you unlock the developer options, you can go here, and there is this option here, picture color mode. You can use sRGB if you want more realistic colors. So if you felt that the colors are a bit oversaturated, you tap this, you'll be happy with it. Overall, an excellent display, not much to complain about. And now it's time to talk about the camera. So first, the back camera, the one that sticks out to a bit of a hump, 12.3 megapixel shooter, 1.55 micron pixels, dual LED flash, laser autofocus, f2.0 aperture, and the sensor is made by Sony, is the IMX377. There is no optical image stabilization, and it's a 4:3 module. Keep in mind that the predecessor did have stabilization. At the front, also a Sony camera, and it's a Sony IMX179, 8 megapixel shooter, f2.4 aperture, and 1.4 micron pixels. Okay, so the predecessor, once again, Nexus 6 had a 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization. It feels strange to go down in resolution and lack optical image stabilization, but you'll see there are some nice surprises. So the camera app opens pretty fast, and speaking of fast, this phone is the fastest picture taker I've seen in my life. you simply tap and take the picture, which frankly speaking, I've never seen such speed on any phone out there. The UI is very simple, typical for an Android stock device. It's stock Marshmallow, and let's see what we got here. So on the left side we have photosphere, we got panorama, and lens blur that allows you to refocus after the shot and blur a certain area. Then we have settings with resolution and quality. You can set the back camera to 12.2 megapixels in 4:3, 7.7 megapixel in 4:3, 8.2 megapixel in 16:9, and a few other resolutions. Front camera 8 megapixels, 5, 3.1 or 4.1, and the video can be shot in 4K, Full HD or HD. Video stabilization option and panorama resolution are also here, with panorama being high, normal or low, which is the fastest. Then we have save location, show grid, burst settings like smart burst and auto generate creations, and that's pretty much it. At the top side we have the timer. We have HDR plus, which can be set to on, auto or off, and we got the flash options, which are typical for any handset. If we swipe to the side, you can enter the video capture mode, which can allow you to set the capture to 120 frames per second in slow-mo, 240 frames per second, also slow-mo, and looking very appealing. For those of you wondering, HDR Plus is able to handle dynamic range scenes, low light scenes, and combine pictures into one that is able to create a proper exposure and white balance. Okay, now as far as the actual experience goes, not only the picture taking is fast, but also the exposure change and focus change. As you can see right here, focus change is very fast and without a problem. Of course, zoom is not exactly fluid, I would say, and I find that it could zoom more. At least my expectations were that the phone could zoom a bit more. If you double tap the power button, you'll see that you can go from nothing to camera in 1.1 seconds. So here we go. Just double tap the power button and we quickly got to the camera, which is quite impressive. Now we take a picture. See that it's very fast and also pretty crisp, I'd say, and clear, but the final judgment is reserved to our gallery, and we do have one, obviously. We've taken a series of photos outside, quite a few of them, almost 200, which sounds crazy, but it's true. So those are the camera shots, and I'm going to take them one by one and discuss them. So here we go. We have here first the conditions were sunny in mid-February, and we start off with this. So a regular camera photo, and then HDR, making things look much more realistic. Here there was a problem with the sun, here that problem was gone. The details are pretty great. Here we took the first selfie with the background feeling a bit burnt, but the face texture and hair texture looking quite well. Another shot, excellent texture of the building, and in spite of the fact we had a pretty powerful afternoon sun, there was no problem whatsoever. Another selfie, well taken, nice skin texture, nice hair texture again, so no objections. Keep in mind that the sun was in this photo in front of us, and still the exposure and white balance were quite good. We registered some excellent shadows that we caught in those corridors that are inside the museum. Museums are not the best places to take a picture because they're very shadowy and have strange exposures. Now this shot is to test the zoom in, so a regular shot and maximum zoom level. Is very impressive to see such detail on this statue, considering how far it actually was, at about a height of, let's say, 2.5 meters or so, or maybe even 3 meters. The colors were very realistic. As you can see in this shot, we got blue, we got red, we got yellow, and even some green, and all of them look fantastic. I remember praising the LG G4 for its very realistic colors. Well, I would put the Nexus 6P in the same area, also very realistic. There was no blur in the photos, perfect focus and exposure, and the sun didn't affect the pictures. Great details in landscape mode, and sometimes a bit hard to focus when trying to take close-ups and macros. We did manage to score a few macros and close-ups of flowers after some attempts. And this is the panorama with a pretty generous resolution of 13,312 pixels over 1830 pixels, and looking very crisp. It's like you're there It's rare that we get to see a panorama so well made. And then we proceed further, a few more shots. This is indoor and the lighting is well caught. Nice colors, great exposure, very crisp. Trying some HDR action here, which made the image a bit more realistic and less burnt. And then we skip ahead after a series of more shots. This is where we had the problems with the focusing in order to take a close-up. But in the end, we achieved that close-up with a batch of flowers. Here we go. Excellent looking, great details, but it takes a bit of work, and usually when you say close-up of a flower, you mean a distance like this, not like this. This flower was pretty much at this distance, not this. So you can forget about very close macros, but the results are quite spectacular when you do manage to catch a flower in close-up like this. More selfies because we couldn't help it. Okay, we're done with the sunny day. We also had a gallery taken at sunset in a totally different area. We started off with some indoor shots. The shades pretty much drawn, almost night, and still the TV was looking nice. Flowers, first attempt, blurry. Second attempt, more clear, but still not exactly close up. They weren't that close. And a few more shots taken at sunset. And let's see how clear the sheep are. So they're pretty far. It's a landscape picture, and still you can clearly see that they're marked with red on their wall. More shots, landscape, sheep, dogs, the field, another panorama that looks quite hot, and this is the sun setting, which is a pretty big test for any phone out there. I like the shades of colors we registered here. It's a very pragmatic approach from this camera. The colors are more realistic than on the Huawei Mate 8, for example. And I remember having an excellent picture of some moss on a tree. Should be here somewhere. Here we are. Moss on a tree. Excellent level of detail and quite impressive nature shot. So you get the idea. I'll have to say that this camera feels equal to the one of the iPhone 6s and iPhone 6s Plus, if not better in some circumstances. I also have to say that while I'm generally happy with this phone, the Nexus 6P, the predecessor, the Motorola Nexus 6, had better close-ups, but overall was weaker, and when you look at its shots from the review we did a year before, they felt more washed out than what this model offers, which is very realistic colors, excellent brightness and very crisp images. Okay, so those are all daytime shots. We're happy with it, and I would even dare to place this handset in the same league as the Samsung Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge, maybe 5% less impressive, but still very good. We also took some samples at night and found them to be pretty impressive. So first of all, the shots were extremely bright for low light conditions. We had a very powerful flash, and while they were impressive, the Huawei Mate 8 remains a landmark in this area, and these shots felt a bit more yellowish than the ones of the Mate 8. Even more are available here. As you can see, the light halos aren't very big, the brightness is good, and the colors look quite nicely here. The nighttime HDR is simply fantastic, and you couldn't wish better for a capture that doesn't involve flash at least. The nighttime shots felt a bit below the LG G4, but still they're very impressive, and of course we surpassed all the iPhones during the low light capture, so we were happy with that aspect. Once again taken at about 1 AM at night and looking quite impressive. Now it's time to talk about the video, and this handset is able to shoot Full HD videos in MP4 30 frames per second with 17 megapixel bitrate, or 4K videos with 42 megapixel bitrate. Now let's take the clips one by one. So this is the first one. I have to warn you, the microphones are quite good and they caught the sound of the streets pretty well. So we have good clarity and colors, but the clip is a bit shaky and the exposure tends to change a bit too fast and a bit violently. Then we have the 4K video sample here. That looks pretty much excellent, nothing to complain. The exposure changes better this time, the image is very crisp. Colors are great, clarity is good, frame rate is fantastic, and bitrate is great as well. No focus problems, and the stabilization was also reasonable for a phone that does not have optical image stabilization. We proceed looking for another video. We have this one here that has an excellent acoustic capture. Wait till you see it on YouTube, you'll be impressed. Exposure changes again. Great focus and clarity, good colors. Aside from the exposure change that's sudden and violent in some clips, I have to say I'm pretty happy with the filming. And next is this one here. A bit shaky but better than the one before. Finally, no more exposure problems. And then we did a zoom test, which should be this one here. Started filming, saw a tall building, zoomed all the way to the max, and we were happy to register that we didn't drop any of the details, which is quite nice. Okay, and now we proceed further to some slow motion shots, which have to be some of the best slow motions I've taken with a phone ever, and I'm including here the iPhones. So check this out. That's where the slow motion starts. This is the 120 frames per second clip. Nice slow motion, and this is the 240 frames per second clip that looks and sounds a bit creepy at some point. Here we go. Listen to this. Very, very slow. People crossing the street. As I said, it's so good, it's creepy, and when it comes to slow motion, this handset can really handle that. At the night time, well, things weren't that good, so filming number one without a flash. The colors are okay, and it's blurry a bit and a bit dark. Then we tried out with a flash, and let's see what came out of that. The flash is really powerful here. The clarity is quite good, street lights don't have big halos, and brightness is also pretty much okay. Some grain is included, but not in an exaggerated fashion. So overall, I'd say that the video capture on the Nexus 6P is superior to the one of the Huawei Mate 8, the Huawei Mate S, all the Asus phones from last year, even the LG G4 a little bit, all the Huawei phones we tested over the past year, and even the Nexus 6 from last year, minus the nighttime video shots that were great on the Nexus 6. Overall, an excellent camera. It surpassed my expectations even after the great camera of the Huawei Mate 8. And you can also fight the LG G4 easily, and also the Galaxy S6 models, and it beats the iPhones in some aspects. And now, as far as the editing is concerned, we're using the Photos app, obviously. We enter a shot, we press this button here, and we have options like auto, light, color, pop, and vignette. Then we got a bunch of filters and these usual rotating and other scaling options. Okay, we're totally done with the camera related aspects. Time to talk about the performance, and performance involves, as usual, temperature. So here we go. This is a thermometer that we use for handsets. After playing the game Riptide GP2 for 15 minutes, we achieved 35.3 degrees Celsius, which means the Nexus 6P does not overheat. So excellent temperature. Now, as far as connectivity goes, we're totally covered, as I said before. So we're getting here Wi-Fi 802.11, A, B, G, and AC. There's Wi-Fi dual band, Bluetooth 4.2, USB Type-C, LTE with a top speed of 300 Mbps download, GPS, DLNA, NFC, and a nano SIM card slot. And we also did a speed test with Wi-Fi with very good results. This is it. A ping of 11 ms is excellent, and also download speed 27 Mbps and upload 25 Mbps. Quite top-notch results. Other than that, when it comes to calling people, I have to say that we get very good noise cancelling, a loudspeaker, and a clear sound, so no objections here either. Now we have reached the section we call browser plus benchmark. The browser obviously is Chrome, pre-installed Chrome, and as usual I have one or two complaints about its loading speed for some websites, including ours. At least this scrolling is fluid. The keyboard is the stock one, comfy and well spaced, and also with a bit of swipe action going on. Other than that, well, it's time to see some results related to the browser, so here we go. We got the Velamo Chrome browser test, HTML5 test, 4884, a pretty good score. May not be 5000 we've seen on other models, but it's quite good. Also good are the other scores for the browser. Browser mark 2487, once it surpasses 2000 it's a good score. And finally SunSpider 876, I've seen scores as low as 300 or 400 on the iPhones, which are the best ones, so it could be better here. Now, if you're talking about the browser and benchmark, you're talking about performance. The handset has fantastic fluidity in the interface. Basically, there's no lag, and the animation from opening an app, from doing anything, is basically flawless. Everything is fast, fluid, and basically zippy. You zap around the interface without a single problem. So, if you look at 2015, you probably saw one or two flagships with some traces of lag. Well, you can forget about that on this stock Marshmallow device. Games run great. We played Grand Theft Auto, Liberty City Stories, worked like a charm. We played Riptide GP2, our usual benchmark game, also worked fine. You get dual speakers, so you can really blast the tunes of the game into the speakers and enjoy them. This is what the game looks like, and obviously since we can run the latest Grand Theft Auto title, you'll probably be happy with the performance in Riptide GP2. Okay, we started our hoverjet. Nice speed sensation, good light effects, good shadows, good everything, and the gaming checks out, and the phone does not overheat after long periods of gaming. Of course, we also did some benchmarks, but we tend to put less emphasis on them nowadays because people do not want to get bored by numbers over and over again. So let's see what's happening here. We got a table of results. We compare the Nexus 6P with the OnePlus 2, Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, iPhone 6s Plus, and those are the results you can see here. So our model is able to win only 9 out of the around 20 tests, and you should notice that the Snapdragon 810 CPU on board has some troubles moving the pixels of the Quad HD screen. For example, it's below the Exynos 7420 from the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus in about 80% of the tests. It's also beaten by the OnePlus 2 in some tests, and from what I can see there are tests related to the GPU where the OnePlus 2 is better in spite of the fact they have the very same CPU. And in the meantime, the Huawei Nexus 6P scored the 13th place in our top benchmarks between the HTC One M9 and the Huawei Mate S. So while the benchmark didn't make us happy, the general performance is very good and is very fluid. Now we're at that part of the review where we check out the software, and we're dealing with stock Android 6.0.1 Marshmallow. As you can see right here, 6.0.1, and some of the features we already listed in the HTC One A9 review. That was the first Marshmallow phone we tested. Well, time for a recap. So we get that feature when you let the phone like this with the screen turned off, and eventually it goes into doze mode and restricts access to network and CPU to a list of applications. A novelty in Marshmallow is the fact that you are being asked permissions in the app when the app wants access to contacts, GPS, camera and other features, and you have to go to the settings and configure those apps. So settings, you have to go to the apps area, and then you can go to the portion where you configure apps. Here we go, app permissions available right here. They're organized by categories, SMS, phone, microphone and all that. And you can have a list here, you can check or uncheck them, so everybody's happy with the permission management. Another novelty, well, we have a brand new app drawer. It has a white background, it scrolls vertically, has a search bar at the top and a favorite bar with 4 of the most used apps that you like to use all the time. Okay, we proceed further, and now multitasking has stayed the same from Lollipop. Drop down area also the same from Lollipop. And a novelty, probably the best one in Marshmallow, is Google Now on tap. If you say, okay Google, look up a restaurant close by.
Here are the listings for restaurant.
Okay, so it did that for me, but the most important thing about Google Now on Tap is the fact that it's contextual. So if you're inside a website and you keep the home button pressed, it reads the screen for you and tells you some extra details. If you're in Gmail and you receive a movie invitation, you keep the home button pressed and it tells you movie times and things like that. So it's much more contextualized now and can read what you're doing. The same works for the OK Google command that can be set to answer questions even when listening to music. Other novelties, well, we got Android Pay and we have some extras we can find in the settings area. Stuff like memory, which wasn't available in Lollipop. We can see the RAM usage. We can set up checks every once in a while. You can see which of the apps are memory hogs. And you can also view, let's see what else. Location, security, accounts, battery, storage and USB. You can also explore. Explore is also a new feature which was not available in Lollipop. That's why I wanted to enter this area. And another new feature is the text selection. So if you're in an article and you keep it pressed, you have this text selection mechanism with select, copy and share, much more intuitive, faster and simpler. Silent mode is also back with Marshmallow without any confusion between silent mode, do not disturb and things like that. Also change is the link behavior from apps, so the links that open up from apps can be set from within settings, and now Chrome has custom pop-up windows. Widgets, well, they're basically the same story. They're being organized in a vertically scrolling area, each section with its own horizontally scrolling versions of the widget, as you can see right here. Okay, and you can also use that option called ambient display. Basically, you leave the phone like this for about, let's say 25 seconds, and it's showing right now. It's showing the time and the notification on the screen. If you pick it up, it usually shows up in a very dim version that saves power from the screen. Now, it's time to analyze the fingerprint scanner, so here we go. It's all about security, so we go to security and we enter Nexus imprint. We select continue, set up screen lock, start off with a pin as a backup. Okay, and time for the setup, which is quite fast. About 5 or 4 times of placing the finger on the sensor should do it. We're totally done, it's okay, and we can now start up the device from standby like this. I tapped it, or enter the lock screen and then fire it up. Let's try it again. I even tried it at an angle and it works, so here we go, like this. I'm not touching anything, and from the angle recognized, which is quite impressive. So here we go again, screen not on, from the angle the screen is on. So that's the fingerprint scanner in a nutshell. Fast setup, fast recognition, good accuracy, so no problem here. Also have encryption, and obviously on the leftmost side of all home screen you have the Google Now cards with all the info about your favorite stories, football teams, news, weather, whatever you like, and even the information about getting to work faster. Now the pre-installed apps list, well, Google is keeping it very light, allows you to pre-install most of them. As far as I know, you can uninstall if you want stuff like Sheets, Slides. As far as I know, once again, you should also be able to uninstall Google Play Games from what I've heard. Anyway, let's see the list one more time. So calculator, calendar, camera, Chrome, clock, contacts, docs, downloads, drive, Gmail, Google, Hangouts, Keep, Maps, Messenger, news and weather, phone, photos, play books, play games, play music and Play Store, settings, sheets and slides and YouTube. Those are all pre-installed apps, not very many of them, and as I said before, we can uninstall them. And once again, the speed of the apps and the UI is fantastic. Things lacking from Marshmallow, things that people may want in the future, well, maybe a stock multi-window mode, more customization, maybe some themes to throw around, and even less apps if possible. Now it's time for the verdict and the pros and cons. On the pro side of the Nexus 6P, it's the most beautiful Nexus phone launched so far. It has good speakers in real life, although that decibel test meter showed us something else. We have a great display here, make no mistake, you already saw it in action in both games and video. It looks fantastic, has excellent brightness, and I have to say that this has to be one of the fastest cameras around on this model, and also the camera is pretty great. Even when it comes to video capture, it may not be on par with the flagships, but still it beats the predecessor and the Huawei Mate 8, which is no small feat. So good camera, very fluid interface, I keep repeating that. It's just the fact that everything is snappy, every app you enter feels like it's starting up a few milliseconds faster than any other phone on the market. There's no bloatware, there's a fast fingerprint scanner, and general usage is nice, and once again the display looks great. Also the price is quite good for what you get. On the cons side, I have to admit the battery could be better. This is a phablet after all, and about 6 hours of continuous usage do not do it for me, and I wanted maybe 10 hours of video playback, didn't get that, so battery could be better. The CPU is clearly below the Samsung Exynos 7420, which was a big deal last year. Imagine this year, this becomes less relevant. Benchmarks are in the so-and-so category. The decibel meter test was not great, but once again it's all about theory and real life. In real life I like the volume of the speakers, in theory the decibel meter didn't impress. Also I found that close-ups with the camera were hard to take, because it was a bit hard to focus. And finally, lack of optical image stabilization may be a problem, especially since the predecessor, the Nexus 6, had it. So overall, what we're dealing with here is the most powerful Nexus phone right now, the best looking Nexus phone right now, and the Nexus phone with the best camera right now. So three besties right here, three best things about this Nexus phone, which may be enough for a hardcore stock Android fan to buy this device. It's almost flawless when it comes to multimedia because it has a bright screen, it has pretty loud speakers, very good camera, so that's multimedia covered in a nutshell. It beats the Nexus 6 in all the important areas, has the fastest software experience I've seen, and updates are guaranteed for a long while to come over the next years. Only the battery can be considered a minor hitch. Other than that, it's the perfect stock Android device to get right at this moment, and the price will keep dropping, I'm sure. This is it from gsndon.com. This has been the review of the Huawei Nexus 6P. Bye bye.